Hi everybody, I'm Ray Wong with Constellation Research. Thank you so much for that intro, and more importantly, it's an amazing event. Let's spend some time talking about the case for decision velocity. This is one of the most important things that happens, and more importantly, this is why you're actually using the Graph database. Now, let's take some step back and see what's going on. One of the stats that we talk about in the marketplace is the fact that 63% of the Fortune 500 have been merged, acquired, gone bankrupt, fallen off the list since 2000. Now, why is that? Well, there's been massive amounts of change. And one of the major forces of change is a concept around digital transformation. But you can't have digital transformation without data. And more importantly, you can't build new business models without that data. And more importantly than that is the fact that you can't do that without a graph database. But let's take a step back and let's say, what's going on? What is the hottest performing stock from 2009 to 2019, pre-pandemic, because it is looking bloody out there, and everyone sees that right now. But let me give you some names here. I'll call them out. Tell me one of these stocks. Yell them out. Tell me which one's important. Is it Tesla, right? Is it Apple, Alphabet? Netflix? No, yeah, probably not going to go there. But hey, these were the top stocks from 2009 through 2019. So ready? All right, we'll do a countdown. The top performing stock between 2009 to 2019. One of the top ones, I know it's one of them on here, but here's one that might surprise you. We're gonna do a countdown. 3, 2, 1. You ready? Domino's Pizza. I don't know if they are a client, so I have to be very careful what I say here, but Domino's won the digital transformation battle. And here's what makes it very interesting. You can order the pizza 17 different ways. You can order it online. You can order it from the phone. You can pick it up in the store. You can tell Alexa to send you a pizza. But more importantly, they can also track the pizza everywhere it's going. They track from the time it's in the oven. They tell you it's 15 minutes away, 5 minutes away, and of course, it's at your door. And when you're done, you can take a picture of the pizza, send it to the AI engine, and more importantly, they can tell you the quality of the franchisee. Domino's went from $3 to $300 plus during this period of time. One of the biggest success stories. They won the digital transformation battle. In fact, they put Pizza Hut so far behind that they're winning 2-1 in terms of their sales. And what's interesting about this is every piece of that experience is a digital interaction. Every piece of that experience is a capture in terms of that digital transformation that they do. So for example, how often do you order pizza? Anyone order, I don't know, once a month? Anybody order once a week? Anyone order more than once a week? Do you have kids? Are you single? All right, that could make sense. But here's what's going on. Most people order pizza maybe about once a week, maybe twice a week. But here's the challenge, right? How often do you order from food delivery app companies, even now? Well, some people order how often? Like, do you order once a week? Do you order more than once a week? Do you order more than once a day? Okay, a lot of people do actually. And what happened during the middle of the pandemic? Well, small businesses gave up their customers because they weren't able to deliver. So they contracted out to these food delivery app companies. These food delivery app companies took their customer information, they took the transaction history, they took the order, and pretty soon they were able to build these large networks. Right? And this is really the story of what's going on in this next set of transformation that's out there. And why is this important? Because you can actually see 5 things happen. 1, these companies basically didn't have customers. They suddenly aggregated the small business customers and built networks of millions of customers. They used that data to actually compete with the data to figure out routes, right? What food genres, more importantly? What pricing should we use? Where do we actually get our drivers? How do we connect those folks together? Then they took and built those networks and used digital monetization models that were much bigger than people had thought before. Not just the goods and services, but also ads and search, right? Subscriptions and memberships came into play. And of course, these companies could lose hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and no one cared so long they were growing fast enough, right? And that's actually how they came out and created the scenario. In fact, Domino's actually has seen declines in year-over-year store growth over the last 2 quarters. And we're going to see more of this. Now, the question is, can a company like Domino's succeed? Can they take their win in digital transformation and do more? We actually believe they can, and we actually see the future behind it. But digital transformation is not enough. And this is actually why there are a couple concepts that are important that we'll get to. But digital transformation is not enough because you have to do a little bit more. Now, when we look at what's going on in terms of these companies that have succeeded, that have built their businesses on data, and those are things that you can do, these companies have actually quintupled their market cap since 2017. So these companies were worth $2 trillion in 2017. By 2022, they were $10 trillion. Maybe it dropped a little bit since then, but never before in the history of companies and organizations have companies been able to quintuple their market cap. I mean, that is a phenomenon never seen before. And that's really done because these are companies that are built on data. These are companies that are built on new business models, and that's what we're seeing. And we actually believe 81% of the Fortune 500 will be gone by 2040, and that's why. And that's really the concept behind these digital giants in this book, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And so that's why we want to talk a little bit about what's next. Where are we headed? Where's the autonomous enterprise going? Where are analytics? Where's Graph? Where's everything coming together? And the biggest concept here that we want to spend time on is this concept for competing for data supremacy. And what I mean by that is the fact that data is the foundation for those next set of businesses. Data is the foundation for these companies that have succeeded. And how we do that? We start with analytics. And when I say analytics, I'm not talking about reporting, okay? We're talking about analytics. We have to ask the right business questions. Do I add 10 more people in marketing? Or do I spend $1 million on an ad campaign? Do I add 5 more people in sales? Or do I actually build something into a new software program or in terms of the e-commerce site? Where can I actually generate that? And so we got to start asking business questions. Now, the challenge with asking business questions is we often don't know where the data is on the other end. And that's the part where we actually get baffled. Now, here's the secret. 70% of your mission critical information is going to sit outside your 4 walls. It's the social media feed. It's the weather feed. It's a supply chain feed. It's information coming from another stream of information. It's sitting at the edges. And the question is, can you bring that information in real time, be able to use that information and generate some insights and answer your business question? The second thing we have to do is we have to build dynamic feedback loops and what we call signal intelligence. In the digital world, the amazing thing is that every choice is an A/B test, right? You are trying to figure out where an individual and an object like an order or an invoice or a request connects back to context. We've got weather, we've got location, we've got business process, I've got time, I've got temperature. I might even have your heart rate if I'm in the metaverse. I can see how fast you're blinking. And that context allows us to actually do testing. And so when you serve up choices, you're actually doing an A/B test. You know that. You know about what's actually about to happen. And so you get really good at creating these feedback loops to create signal intelligence. And over time, what we want to do is get to a point where we can automate precision decisions. Right? We have to remove false positives, false negatives. We've got to get our information and our precision down to a level where it's like 99.9%. Where most people today, probably in the 80s, maybe in the 90s, depending where you are. And that actually happens as we actually automate more information insights, automate those business process capture, get more of that information in these feeds that are happening. Now, why are we doing this? Well, we want to achieve a concept called decision velocity. You and I might make a decision in a split second. Pretty good. How long does it take to get out of management committee? Is it a day? I don't know. A week? A month? A quarter? Even a year? Oh my God. Actually, it could take forever. But machines are making decisions, hundreds of decisions per second, even 1,000 decisions per second. And that asymmetry is really the difference between companies that are going to succeed in this world and the companies that are going to fall behind. And that's why we're actually so focused on this notion of decision velocity. Now, behind that decision velocity really is our ability to actually get there. And that's really about getting information into the cloud, pulling it all into a graph database, taking that information insight, and be able to think about the upstream, the downstream implications, and of course, answering those 3 A's for decision velocity. Analytics, the business question. Automation, our ability to capture that information at scale. And of course, the AI on the back end, which allows us to build what we call the business graph. That business graph is basically the brains, right? It takes years to build this, but it's really the interactions. Take any stakeholder, employee, customer, partner, supplier. What is the interaction that they're working with an object? And we said this earlier, invoice or request or an order. And think about really what's happening on the edges, the attributes and the context behind it. Those interactions over time form that business graph, and that's really the value inside the company. That's how we go from data to decisions. That's how we go from the ability to actually take insight to action. And that's why it's so important to build that. Now, part of this is really this evolution of where we're heading in terms of these systems. We're going from transactional systems to autonomous systems. Transactional systems, we know, those are like CRM, ERP, your payroll systems. And we had 50 to 60 years to perfect these. They're one way, they're dictatorial, right? It's information that's captured with intense accuracy and precision, and we get that. But then over time, we realized that that's not enough. We actually have to build systems that actually allow us to collaborate and engage. And these are engagement systems. These are social networks, our ability to comment, ability to share information, ability to collaborate. But then over time, we took that to the next level and said, how do we build experiential systems? How do we take journeys and actually pull them together? How do we take a business flow and business process and pull from different applications and actually understand what's going on there? And then over time, we made them contextually relevant. We delivered mass personalization at scale by building relevance systems. These relevance systems allow us to actually anticipate what's about to happen next and use that analytics and information and insight to be able to actually create the next opportunity, create the next risk mitigation, understand where a customer is, right? Identify fraud ahead of time. And then over time, we want to build autonomous systems. These autonomous systems, they run by themselves, right? They're self-governing. They actually operate at what we call a decision scale, which is very hard to do. And more importantly, they're virtual, right? They're happening in space-time continuum. They're actually moving ahead of time. Now, let me give you an example of how this works. When we bring all this information together, we can build data-driven business models, right? And one of these AI-driven CX-oriented business models is related to a toaster. And you're probably wondering why there is a toaster up here. Like, this is kind of weird. Why is there a toaster? Well, let me ask you a question. How many folks over here actually fill out the warranty card for the toaster? Anybody? Usually about 1 or 2 people fill out the warranty card, right? They send it back in or they fill it online just to register the toaster. Now, most people don't do this, right? And the challenge is when you don't do this, you enter a very interesting situation, right? Can you imagine the first phone call the manufacturer gets about their toaster? Is it like, this is amazing, I want to buy 5? Probably not. It's actually a little bit funnier than this. You actually have someone on the phone asking about, hey, how do I use the toaster? My toaster was on fire, I'm upset with my toaster, it doesn't work. So your first interaction with a customer who you've never ever met is awful. It is negative NPS, the customer is mad, and you're chewing 30 minutes on the phone with a contact center agent. It is a miserable experience. Now, to fix that, we actually have to give you an opportunity to actually change the opportunity, change the dynamics of actually how you work with this. And so what we suggest is, how do we get people to register for the toaster? And so we would actually change this around and say, hey, look, for those that you don't normally register for the toaster, we would like you to actually just fill out the warranty card. Give us some kind of contact information. It could be like a cell phone, it could be an email, dummy email address or something. Allow us to connect the toaster to the internet, because if we can do that, we can monitor the toaster, see how it's doing. We can understand like when it's being used, what features are being used, right? You know, what breaks more, which component manufacturers lied to us, and we'll be able to get to that information, right? And we'll make you an offer. We'll tell you 90 days before the toaster's about to die, or you know, if there's a problem with the toaster, we'll actually send up a warning and let you know that there's going to be an issue with the toaster in the future. And more importantly, you know, we'll be able to actually monitor this toaster and say, even like 72 hours before, to tell you, hey, maybe you need a repair or maybe we need to replace this toaster. We'll make you an offer for the toaster at the same price you paid maybe 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and have it shipped to you before the next toaster, before the current toaster dies. Would you take that offer? It's a pretty interesting thing. I just need you to fill out the form. Now, if you do fill out the form, what's actually going to happen is we're going to actually have that information and insight. And suddenly we can actually discover a whole bunch of things. Why do toasters in Houston break more than toasters in Denver? Anybody? What do you think? Is it humidity? Okay, some of you got that right. Why are toasters in New York more likely to break than toasters in Minneapolis? It's not the New Yorkers. Take a guess. It's bagels, right? They jam the toasters. They break more often, right? And so suddenly we've got very interesting information and insights. We know which toaster is going to last longer. We know the humidity. We know other factors. We're building that information. We're building the correlations around that. And so we suddenly get into a situation where we can actually deliver a bunch of things. First, we can do customer experience monitoring. Understand what's going on with the toasters. Second, because of the information and insights, we can actually do diagnostics through the internet and do remote field service. But third of all, we can actually start delivering some interesting capabilities. If I said, look, take this toaster, 50 cents for the next 5 years, and we'll deliver toast as a service. If the toaster ever dies in 48 hours, we'll send a repair person. If it's completely needs to be replaced, we'll send you a brand new one in 72 hours, and we'll put you on warranty. Now you have a subscription business model on a toaster built on the data that you had. And more importantly, we can go direct to consumer. Showrooming in a retail store, that's first sale and that's it. After that, we can go out and cross-sell and sell additional appliances. You want more than a toaster? We'll give you a can opener. We'll give you a microwave oven. We'll actually do a washer and dishwasher. We can do all these different things. These are these data-driven business models that are being built, and more importantly, this is our future path to actually getting to AI and autonomy, right? How do we do this? We're still at predictive analytics and machine learning, And that's kind of where we are at the moment. Over some periods of time, we'll get to neural networks, we'll get to cognitive computing. But before we do that, we can take some simple steps. The first one, we can start thinking about where we automate, when it makes sense to do the automation. Well, let's think about processes. Anything highly repetitive, we really want to automate. Why? Because we get sloppy, we get bored. These are areas that we want to minimize risk. We want to minimize our ability to actually minimize errors, right? Lots of volume? Well, this is very different. Like human scale versus machine scale, we won't be able to actually address that. We don't want to put more people to the problem. We want to actually use our ability to take software automation and take that to the next level. And then of course, we have things that are hard to complete. Massive time to completion, it's very hard to get this scale. And that's where you're actually going to use automation versus a human-powered approach. And then of course, massive nodes of interaction, you and I can probably multitask 3 streams, 4 streams, maybe 5. But if you got to do 25 streams, that's going to the machine. However, the situation changes when we actually start looking at processes in terms of level complexity. And this is counterintuitive. You think a highly complex process would definitely go to a machine, but in fact, there are many processes that we can't model in math and we can't model accurately that actually requires human judgment. And in other areas like creativity, we're really good at making the rules, but you know what? We're even better at breaking the rules with the right incentives. And of course, the last piece is when do you want a human touch? When do you want to insert a human into the process? And that's where we actually add physical presence. Now the goal here is actually important. What are we trying to do? Well, we've got a spectrum of AI outcomes we want to deliver on. At the very, very beginning, we want to be able to just say, what's going on? Tell me what's happening. That's perception. But the next level up is a little bit different. That's really, help me figure out what's going on. Give me a notification, give me an alert, give me a workflow. Right? Because there's too much information, I need you to help me filter this down. Even after that, we now have the ability to say, make me a recommendation. You know all this information, filter everything out, make a few suggestions. I'll respond to those suggestions. You'll get smart at learning from those suggestions. And at some point, we can do full automation. And once we have that, we can start doing prediction and we can start preventing disasters from happening. And maybe we'll get to full situational awareness. Now, why is prediction important? Well, that's our ability to actually model things, anticipate. And why is prevention even more importantly? Well, let me explain this. Remember this famous phone? Actually, I have to be careful here. Remember this famous phone is in all the airports, caught on fire? 80 of them caught on fire, right? I wonder which phone was that. I'll let you guys guess. 80 phones caught on fire. For 8 weeks, there was a recall that cost this company $8 billion. Now think about it. 80 phones for this large phone manufacturer is like 8 sigma in quality. I mean, it's just 80 phones. Now imagine if we go from 8 weeks to 1 week in a recall. That's $1 billion recall. If we can go from 1 week to 1 day, that's a $100 million recall. And this is really where we see the power of AI. If we can actually keep prevention in place, we can mitigate risk, we can drive down exposure. More importantly, we can actually prevent bad things from happening. And that's why it's important. Now let's take a step back and think about every business process you're in. There are 4 questions you have to ask, regardless of whether it's a customer experience journey, a supplier journey, and something happening in employee experience or work. Right? You have to ask these questions. The first one is, when do you do full intelligent machine automation? We're going to get to that point. And that's a very important place where we actually take our analytics data decisions and actually let things run on their own. Now you're saying, like, we don't have situations like that. Actually, we do. Think about trains, right? In the history of trains and train disasters, we've actually seen a couple things, right? They're typically man-made errors. Right? So the conductor was asleep. The conductor was drunk. The conductor was on a mobile phone, right? The conductor, was doing something else, right? Distracted. Well, airports, if you sit in airports and you travel between terminals, they've got trains. In fact, there's no conductors on the trains. Those things are fully automated. And in fact, I don't think I can remember any type of airport train accident that has ever occurred. That's full intelligent machine automation. Now, the second piece is we can augment the machine with a human. And that allows us to get to precision decisions. We're learning side by side. We're getting folks to the next level, and that's pretty good. For example, would you take 98% accuracy in manufacturing? That's pretty good, right, in terms of decisions. Now, we want to get to 99 over time, but that's not a bad outcome. Let me ask you a different question. Would you take 98% accuracy in healthcare? Anybody? Oh, now you're a little scared. Trust me, I would definitely take the 98% accuracy in healthcare. Here's why. My physician is only 83% accurate. So I actually would trust the machine more than the human. Okay, so you can see how this works. We're building that capability to remove false positives, false negatives, build trust over time. Then of course, how do we augment the human with the machine? That's really the point on decision velocity. Let's get information and insight in the hands of everyone so that they can actually make better decisions, make faster decisions, and of course, be contextually relevant. And then the last piece is, when do we trust human judgment? When do you insert friction into the process? And that's actually going to be important. You have to figure out when to put a person in the middle of a process. Why? Because that's actually part of the human experience. I'll give you an example. It's 2 in the morning, I check into a low budget hotel. Like, honestly, I don't want to see anybody. I want all my preferences in on a mobile app. I want to be able to check out on a mobile app and never see anyone. The key shows up on my phone, totally frictionless. But if you come to my conference at the Half Moon Bay Ritz, I want you to drive up. I want to smell the ocean air. I want someone to open up the doors. I want someone to actually hand a flute of champagne to you. The scent air kicks in. You smell it. Oh, I'm at the Ritz. And of course, someone welcomes you with a warm greeting. Right? Those are very different things, and we'll have to figure out when we actually apply this. We are in different levels of autonomous enterprises, and there's 5 steps. They're just like autonomous vehicles. You know, today we got basic automation. That's like cruise control. Keeps the speed, it gets you there. That's like RPA, right? At some point we get to human directed, which is kind of like, you know, if you ever have a Tesla and you're on autopilot, it can steer, it can keep speed, it can follow a car in front of you. But if you come to a stop sign and there's no car in front of you, it's not going to brake, it's going to run through it, right? That's human directed. And of course, machine intervention comes into place. Machine intervention is kind of like, you know, like when you hear those like trucks and they back up and they make the sound, it goes beep, 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 beep. And suddenly like, hey, what happened? The truck braked. Well, object detection. Obstacle detection kicked in. There's a ball behind me. There's a car behind me. There's a kid behind me. It knows with 99.99% certainty just to hit the brakes. Right? It's better to do that than any other outcome. At least you stopped and no one got hurt. Right? And that's where we get to. We're going to get to machine intervention. And of course, fully autonomous will happen. And at some point, humans might be optional. And we'll get to level 5. So we're getting close to this. So this is really where we are, right? We're in an era where data and digital really require our ability to actually get to this level of automation, this level of being fast, the ability to actually work in real time. This is where graph databases kind of play a huge role. And of course, we have to ask the next question. When will the robots take over? Actually, no, it's a fun question, but we'll talk a little bit about the ethics behind this and we'll wrap up. But here's an interesting question. Like, autopilot runs 90% of the time in most modern jets. And this is a very interesting question. Why do we still have pilots? Anybody ready to get rid of pilots? Anyone? Think about this. Here's why. 83% of accidents occur when it's actually humans in charge during takeoff and landing. I'm making the case. We should just get rid of pilots. Let's go automated all the way. Anyone? And there's a pilot shortage, even on top of that. All right, of course you wouldn't do that. You're like, this is crazy. How would this ever happen? How do we get here? Okay, well, fine. Let me give you an example. I mean, here's why we wouldn't do it, right? Think about Captain Sully. I mean, there's like a 0.006% chance you could actually land a plane in the river and actually survive. Now, if a machine was in charge, what would they do? They'd say, this is crazy. This would never happen. Divert, divert. But wait, there's a human in charge. And because we're human, we're going to take a chance, and we really want to live, right? We will do the most creative things to actually make something happen. And this is actually why we actually find the balance between human and machine, and I'll leave you with that thought. So that's the main thing. So that's pretty much what's going on. We've got a lot of opportunities. We're in the middle of a digital transformation. This digital transformation that's happening is much bigger than what we've seen in the past. This all runs on data. And if you're looking at building your business going forward, you've got to be able to really bring that data, bring those insights, be able to ask questions in clusters that you've never been able to do before, and a traditional database can't do that. You and I know that, and this is why we were using graph databases, but every graph database is a little bit different, and what you're looking for is the ability to make fast decisions, the ability to actually bring complex information and insights together, and the ability to go from data to decisions. And that's how we build those next best actions, and that's why this is very important in terms of how we build that next era. Well, hey, thanks everybody. There's still some more to this conference. And of course, the next part of the conference actually has 2 parts. You have to make a choice, and these are 2 tough choices. One, solving the problems. What are practical graph solutions? And more importantly, talking the tech, thinking about how we actually bring graph analytics, ML, and AI together. So hope to see you there.